Okay. So I think we're ready to start. So Jalasi, welcome everybody. We're here at the Pictou Landing School. And I'd just like to call upon one of our elders, Sarah Francis, to give us an opening prayer. So Sadie.
Kisok, Cesus, Walalia, Tilmawalia, Walalia, Tilia, Weavy, Nego, Bonwing, Chixilmilla, Kursuana, Claman, Isi, Shavanu, Modesnel, Nijana. Nego, show much participation, and Tilmawalia, Dana. Richard was already chipped to Harris and redid me was already done. Chipped to the movie, Gulan, Medicine, Ade was already. Elisabeth chipped to go near the Israel, Armigine, Tamu, Sierra, Slamtus, Luna, Eric Sita, Chibwine to me. In this complex, Hello, Mercury, Measurements, Divan. Which will cover Chigladwi, and yes.
Thank you, Sadie. So we have a number of participants in the room, and we do have members of our Elders Advisory Council for Mi'kmaq Bird Project, as well as a number of the project team members here today. So I'd just like to acknowledge them in the room. And so today we are going to go through Netukulimk, our last webinar, and just want to give thanks to both MK and the Treaty Education Initiative for helping us pull these 3 sessions off. This is the third one of 3, and we'll probably over the next 45 minutes we'll be sharing the unit on Netukulimk, and we'll have. Before we begin, we'll have an overview of the website, because I understand a number of people don't have an actual hard copy of the book yet, and so we're just working out some details on how to get that to some of the New Brunswick schools. So I understand Elsa Booktook's online there, so hopefully we can get you guys some copies there. And if there's any questions in the session today, if you can email them to Sheila. She's online here. Sheila's at cmmns.com, and she can forward the questions to us. And if you want to upload the website, it's www.mi'kmaqdebert.com. So I'm pointing to the screen there. I realize you guys can't see it, but so right on here is the 2 pieces of information: Sheila's email address and the website. So I want to call upon Leah Rosenmar, who's one of the authors and putting the book together with our project team, and she will go over both the unit overview and the web overview for Netukulimk. Should go near there.
Okay, hi everybody. I'm going to be very brief because there's a great group of people here to share and talk with us today. So as Tim mentioned, if you've got questions, please email Sheila as we go through. The Netukulimk, Kevin, can you go to the smart board, please? The Netukulimk unit is, as with all the units, is broken into a primary to grade 3, a grades 4 to 6, and a grade 7 to 9. Today we, as we've done with the other 2 webinars, we did a grade 7 to 9 and a grades 4 to 6. So we're working on the primary to 3 Gaju story. Although because Netukulimk is a very important concept and one that take some explanation. Our approach to today was to broaden out the conversation a little bit and talk about what the concept of Netukulimk means. And so Gerald Glode is going to share a piece about that, and then we're going to have a conversation about it too. So very quickly, I'm just going to run through the Gaju unit in the curriculum. have to just bear with us a second as we get our piece to come up. I need to be at 155. So, thank you, Faye. Perfect. So, as with all the units, there is an opening activity. In this case, what is Msɨt Nogma, and there's a whole piece that's been developed by many of the people who are in the room today. And then, as you move forward a page, thank you, the Gaju story, which is a story about a grandmother and granddaughter who creates a Mayflower. I've lost my words here. And Melody Martin Gugu wrote this story. There's a lot of stories, as you'll see, through the curriculums. And I need to go through. Sorry. Page down. Yeah. We'll keep going. And then the extension activities related to the Gaju story are set around a sequencing activity, which is set out, and you can do either with actual photographs with the students, or Gerald drew a series of line art images in the next page. So, and we know this is a very familiar thing that happens with grades P to 3, but so we've given you 2 different versions to work through with this. And then the end of the unit, thanks, is just the curriculum outcomes. So, and these are done again for every unit. So that's the P to 3 for Netukulimk. I'm not going to go through the whole Netukulimk unit. As I said, we're going to come back around and have some broader conversation. The last piece that we just wanted to do quickly was to look at the website, because we've just had some feedback. Not everybody knows how to get to the website. And on the website, there's the full PDF of the volume plus all of the supplementary materials. And as we've said at the other webinars, as we move forward, the most up-to-date supplementary materials will be on the website. So most volumes have a CD in the back, which have all the PDF files. But for example, Patsy Paul Martin has just done all the audio recordings for every single Mi'kmaq word in the book. So if you're interested in how to pronounce words, you'll be able to find those on the website. They're not quite up yet, but that's the kind of material that we're adding to the website. So we would really encourage you to go there to find out and use the most recent information. So I'm just going to load the website quickly and just run through where things are on it. So can I talk from here? Yep. So I've come in off the main homepage, and the curriculum can be found under Sharing Our Stories, Education and Outreach. And if you go into Teaching About the Mi'kmaq, this Education and Outreach has the programs of Gerald Load, so if people are interested in that, that's where that is. And then underneath that, the Teaching About the Mi'kmaq gives the links to the full PDF here, and then the link to the supplementary material here. If you click on the supplementary material, you'll come down. This is the same page as is off the main menu, supplementary materials for Teaching About the Mi'kmaq. And each file has been PDF'd so that you can download them individually, contemporary issues, and then coming down to Netukulimk. So for today, if you were using the Gaju story, it's a document, a PDF document, and there's a single file. It works like any other PDF. Of course, you can download it or print it, but it's sort of made for your access by class or by unit. Now I just closed it. The other thing we would say to you is that on the website more broadly, there's a whole series of other resources. So there are stories, particularly for Netukulimk in the 7 to 9, if you're using that. The Ancestors Live Here menu give you a whole bunch of stories that Gerald and Clifford and others have recorded across Mi'kma'ki. And again, we have more of those in the queue, and so those will be uploaded. And we're working on on some more that aren't even finished yet. So there's a lot of other resources on the website that relate to Netukulimk, but also to the other units that are in the book. So if you weren't able to reach the first couple of webinars, you'll see that even for healing and contemporary issues, there are a lot of other resources on the website. The other thing that will happen on the website in the next month or so is that we're going to be augmenting with other resources from other websites to link out from the curriculum, just to sort of build and broaden those resources that are available to you. So I think that's...
Could you want to say anything about the statistics on our website for the last...
well, not compared to Gerald's... he'll have to share that story with you. But so yeah, no, the website statistics are showing that people are staying longer on the website. They're reaching more pages. We have about 2,000 hits just this month on it. So for our website, that's good. But yeah, it's showing that there are more people. They're staying longer on the site. They're going to more pages. So
okay. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you, Leah, for those two overviews. So we want to get into unit exploration now. So Gerald is on hand today to give us a sort of understanding of Netukulimk and Msɨt Nogama. So Gerald, I will turn it over to you.
Well, I'll take my place at the commands here. And again, Leah's presentation reads like a table of contents for my presentation, so that worked out very, very well. But again, when we talked about the manual itself, going back a little bit, we're talking about 3 different topics that are covered in the book. We have healing, contemporary issues, and Netukulimk. We got them divided up into 3 different grade groups: primary to 3, 4 till 6, and grade 7 till 9. So that gave us basically 9 different sections. And again, when you take a look at the primary to 3 for healing, we're talking about expressing emotions. For the little older ones, the Maoyomis and gatherings. And then for the Netukulimk part, what we've got is Msɨt Nogama. We're all related. So this is in relationship to the youngest of our audiences. And again, with those 3 topics. And then we bunch off into the older group, the 4 to 6, with diversity and awareness. Treaties are actually discussed. And traditional knowledge is something that we think we can translate to the audience of grades 4 to 6 very nicely. And then again, when you get a little more detailed as you're going along, the grade 7s till 9s, by this time we're talking about someone who's like 13 years old. They're coming into their their teen years, handling more detailed subjects like Indian residential school, land loss and displacement, and the final one is stories of Mi'kma'ki in relationship to geology and our occupation of this land and the land changes that we saw. So that's basically how the manual is set up so far. But again, it's sort of a work in progress, and it's something that we can combine to quite a bit as we grow and develop different projects, and as we get some of these different things on. Now, you just trying to get we got set up with all Mac gear, and I'm an I'm a PC guy, so I think I'm doing pretty good. I think that's where I want to be. There we go. There we go. And again, talking about Netukulimk, what we're going to be talking about today is Msɨt Nogama. And Msɨt Nogama is such a large one that even when we pulled together all of our different resource people, we found that that was one of the most challenging subjects to break down, because it is so all-encompassing, and it does take part of every aspect of our life and our way of life, and even the way that we practice the things that we do. And so when I try to put it into words, I basically took right straight from the book, and I think no one has put it so elegantly in so few words for something so large. And even the introduction to it about what is Msɨt. Msɨt is the Mi'kmaq concept that refers to all living things being related. It is also a term used for honoring and thanking the Creator during celebrations or other occasion, and it is the key part of Netukulimk. And what we're doing today was we're talking about an activity that is aimed at primary to threes, and what we're trying to do is we're trying to initiate conversation with our students about their relationships that they have to the land. Again, initiating questions like, have you ever gone to a walk in the woods with your parents? It's like, have you ever gone to a frog pond? Have you ever gone hunting pollywogs or gathering different materials? These are the questions that we can follow up in relationship to the exercise that we're going to be working on. But again, reading straight from the book, whether we realize it today or not, we gather from and live with the world around us. Msɨt and Netukulimk come together in our lives when we acknowledge that we are not alone in the world, and we say thank you for everything that we're related to, for the air we breathe, the water we use, and the grounds we walk on, our relationship to one another, and the plants and animals that give us both healing and nourishment. That says it all, really, when you talk about our relationship to that intimate relationship that we had with the environment. And again, I don't know if we have time, but I'd love to read Mello's story on Giju that talks about a grandmother and her grandchild going out picking mayflowers. And again, at the time of year that they're expressing their connection to the environment, where everything they need in order to survive is provided for by the Creator. Even when we talk about making birch bark cones for sale to make a little money, that was part of Netukulimk. These are the things that we did, like the basketry that we made. We went peddling mayflowers. And this story talks about the preparation. And again, the grandmother getting the granddaughter out, collecting the birch bark first, looking at indicators in nature that tell us when it's time to do so. They fall and they coincide with other things that are going on in the environment, like the growth of the mayflowers. And even taking the kids out and saying, like, that mayflowers, we actually collect them in April now. And it's like, thanks to global warming, we had a conference with Department of Natural Resources a few years back where they invited in Mi'kmaq elders to talk about their concepts of global warming and their thoughts on it. And Mardina Marshall got up in front of everyone and gracefully said three things. And she said, we have June bugs in May, we have Mayflowers in April, we have April showers in March. And that put a lot of it into perspective for the people in the audience who were trying to say that this global warming was a tree hugger's myth. It's too bad Donald Trump wasn't in the audience, because I don't think he has his head wrapped around that concept either. But still, these things that children definitely can be shown. It's getting Mi'kmaq culture and heritage out of the history books and it's putting in a contemporary format. So many times when we look at Mi'kmaq culture, they do talk about history, but we're still here. And we still practice a way of life that's connected to the environment, and the environment still goes on with that pattern recognition that we learn to harvest and sort of harness itself into a livelihood for ourselves here for over 13,000 years. And again, Netukulimk, the session there, as well as Msɨt Nogama, our connections to our ancestors, it's definitely something that we still have today in every one of our communities and in a lot of our families that are living here. So it gets people thinking outside the box. Now, even in reference to some of the other resource material, I know one of the things that we talk about here is the ecological calendar that was developed by CBU and a lot of partners. I know Clifford had a big hand in that. Lillian Marshall herself and her science. She's one of my favorite science teachers and has taught me a lot. But with the ecological calendar, it breaks it up into the 4 seasons of the year. And those 4 seasons are broken up into our 12 months that we have, 3 months per season. And even the names of the moons and how each moon represents a different activity that goes on in our environment. Now that poster goes more than just 12 little images that are on a poster. It talks about all the indicator species and all the other things that are going on the environment at the same time. And it was that pattern recognition that we used. So these are some of the references that you'll find for the teachers. And even when you're floating along, you'll find little teacher tips throughout the book, represented by an apple and a feather. And there's different things to watch for, little cautionary things, additional things that you may want to include in your presentations or part of the class. And that's another thing about this publication. It's not supposed to be the Bible of education for Mi'kmaq. What it is, it's a resource, and it's a very, very valuable resource. And even though it's broken up into 9 different sections, directed at 3 different age groups, you can take any one of those and modify them by increasing it or decreasing the amount of information that you want to present to a different group. So even if you are talking to a younger group, you can incorporate some of those other elements of the 6 that are represented the older groups. So you can definitely modify, and with the resources, you can definitely customize. At this point, I'd like to bring Clifford Paul into the bunch and see if he has anything he'd like to add at this point.
Oh yeah, doing this section on Netukulimk and really contributing to the entire publication is a real work of art. And for us that contributed, it was a labor of love, because when they first brought us together, I remember our itinerary, and we kind of put the itinerary down and we just told stories. We sat around and told stories. And the second time they brought us, they had another agenda, and we sat around and told stories again. So finally, about a third meeting, they started to realize talking about Netukulimk is bringing the stories out. And the strategy then became for this resource to take those stories and have them so that First Nation children and non-First Nation children can learn from those stories, because the ancient way of educating our people and our youth was through storytelling. It shows in this in the entire publication. So if you want a rich education ahead for our children, we kind of like changed the shape of the classroom and changed the instruction style so that it mirrors the way we grew up. The way we grew up and the way our ancestors grew up, it mirrors that one-on-one, or it mirrors the transmission or the transition of traditional knowledge in a way that, as you said, pattern recognition, the way we learn through storytelling, and the way we learn by going out and doing all these things. It goes into your long-term memory, which is a lot better than what I grew up with in the school system of memorization, studying for a test through memorization. Rather instill the stories in our youth and let those stories stick and grow and have a base for their learning as they go along. So really it was a labor of love for us, and we were very happy to contribute in the ways that we did.
And the contributions came throughout the province, and Kerry Prosper from Buttonkeg, Frank Muse from way down Bear River. And it's like these guys all got together, and it was like your Mi'kmaq dream team to think about all the contributions that they made and the things that they saw and experienced in their life to put into this book and this publication. It definitely says a lot. It's like, I don't know, I can't go on about how it is, but I don't know where you want to take it from here, whether you want to open the floor to other contributors.
No, that was a good lead-in, Gerald, for sort of like we want to have a group discussion. We have, some questions, and I don't have my agenda here, Cliff, but that was a good point, though. It took us a while to really gel and come together and to have people feel safe to share. And once we accomplished that, there was a lot of sharing. There's a lot of humor, there was tears, there was, and we did get through to the end of the three ideas that we wanted to share. So my question to the project team and to elders group is that Netukulimk is a very important and complex idea. So can any one of you say what it means to you? And I'm looking at Carrie here because he shared quite a bit during the session. So we're just going to move the TV to this sort of view so our audience can hone in on the group. So just bear with us for a minute. Carrie, collect his thoughts. Put him on the spot. How's that? Good?
I guess when I think of Netukulimk, I think the time is right now. Because many of us, like my age, and people who, I guess, went on the land, fished, hunted, and gathered, started out at a time when our treaties weren't recognized. And we had to hunt and fish and gather in a way that was under the radar, or in a way that you're always wary about somebody else out there watching and looking for somebody that may be breaking the law. And we were forced to hunt and fish under the radar because we knew there were wardens and game warden, fish wardens, and private landowners who were out there watching the activity within, where we lived. And when fishing, we had to always have somebody always looking out for people who were dressed in uniforms who were coming up river or down river and looking for poachers. And we would certainly escape from them or run away from them because we knew we were exercising the right kind of, but yet we also knew it was illegal according to the province, and we had to go through that. And then comes a time when certain individuals in our communities stand up and say, I will not run any longer, and I will face the consequences and fight for this right. And we have those people in our communities, and some of them are no longer here, like Donald Marshall Jr., Tom Silboy. I don't know if Matthew Simon is still with us. Isaac is still with us, and these are the people who really went out there and said, no more, and we have rights and we want them recognized, and through their efforts we have treaty rights that are recognized. And we have a generation today who are now able to hunt and fish under those rights without having to look behind their back or watch out for people who are going to charge them. And that's a very important lesson in history, and not only about history but activism and fighting for your rights and getting them recognized. And right now we're falling into, responsibility of exercising treaty rights and using this concept of Netukulimk. Understanding Msɨt, understanding where you fit on this land in this web of life and how you're related to everything here, because Mi'kmaq are indigenous to this piece of land, and we've been here so long, we've become a part of everything. And I think we have to educate our kids in how we're going to manage these rights through exercising our treaties, culturally, physically, and spiritually through Netukulimk and understanding your place here. And I think it's a most important place to begin learning that it's in these schools that we have in our communities. And then one day we can develop, greater responsibility and jurisdiction over exercising and protecting our treaty rights, so that our children, our great-grandchildren will have something to live with and work with and make a living from, and provide livelihoods for a very long time.
Thank you. Frank, would you add your perspective?
It's been a wonderful journey, I think, being part of this group and thinking about how our people were so resourceful over many, many years, and how we still are trying to practice that, and maybe doing old things in new ways, but yet still allowing our young people to tell their story. And it's very similar to some of the stories that our ancestors have told us. And so, like, even in our community, to have our young people going out on canoe trips every year and going on the same trails that our ancestors used to travel, and they come back and they felt that, that they were walking the same footprints, but yet they had their own story to tell, a very contemporary story. And I think that's so important to this process, because it's living, it's ongoing, our stories. And I think there's a place for our oral history to continue on. I think there's a place for the written word, but I think it's really important to have them stories that stay alive and they keep growing. And I think that's all part of this what we're doing here. And it's been, like I say, it's been really wonderful to have my own experience of traveling in the forest and having my own stories and walking the same footprints and finding little gifts that our ancestors would leave for us along the way, of artifacts and things like that, and saying, wow, this is for us to hold on and to pass it on to the next generation, and to look after it, and to figure out the whole concept of how do you take things from the forest, and how do you take things from the land, and how do you put things back. And it was so simplistic, like I used to get so worried about that, and my elders would say it's not so much what you put back, it's how you put it back. And I took that, all you have to do is just use your medicines and just put it back on the land and say thank you, as simple as that. And and give respect by acknowledging all your relations or insinogam, and I think that's the things that have stuck with me, and that's the things that we're trying to pass on to our next couple generations, and to come together as people from different districts, and sharing our stories and spending all that time, and to do that was so important. I think to hear each other's stories and how similar they were, and how each district has something very unique, and that we like to share that with each other, and the resources that are abundant in each district, but yet there's so many similarities for us to connect so many other things, like the treaties and our connection to the land, and our governments and everything else that we had, to show that there was bartering and trading and all these other things that's going on. I think so. I think that's some of the things that really stood out for me during this whole process, and it's been really nice to see this I don't want to say the finished product, but at least the stepping stone for us to continue on. And so that's it. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Frank. Appreciate that. Is there somebody from the Elders Advisory Council that would want to share their perspective on the Netukulimk? Phyllis, or?
We're just going at when they're telling about stories, about the stories, how we learn through the stories. I was thinking about the Rand stories, where they had the eel story. There's a lot of mischief in it, but they had fishing in there. And there wasn't, I recall there's another story in the Rand that the beaver went fishing. And was fishing for a while, and his tail froze in the ice. So ice fishing and eeling, they've been there for a long time. These are old stories, 1700 Rand stories.
Well, we certainly have thousands of years of history to share, and I just, got a sort of a cross-section there of the different districts across Mi'kma'ki, so, from one end to the other, Clifford being, and Phyllis, Unama'ki, and Carrie, part of Sabaganagadi, and Frank down in Keswick, so just those 4 districts, and just to share their perspectives of Netukulimk. Second question that I have here is just, Albert Marshall, one of our elders from Eskasoni, says that our spirits are strengthened by our relatives, the birds, the insects, and the animals. How do we help our little children, our young ones, understand that? Can anybody offer?
I think when we begin introducing science and biology and the animals, plants, insects, and to me, the nutrient cycle is a very important part of how indigenous people become a part of the land, as everything else does. Life, life goes on even after death. If you die, you become a part of the earth, and nutrients are passed on from you or the animals, and that's passed on to another life form. And this circle of life we talk about, that's what it is. And through that, and being indigenous to a piece of land so long, you become a part and related to everything. And that concept, it can be taught differently through the years until you really become, your mind develops. As your mind is developing, you can embrace a fuller understanding of that concept as it's introduced through the years. And eventually you'll live that concept. And that's, I guess, for me, a really important place we have to go.
Does anybody else want to share their perspective on Albert's quote about our spirits are strengthened by our relatives, the birds, the insects, and the animals?
I really would like to ask.
We have a question?
Does someone have a question?
No? Okay.
I think I would just like to add that I remember as a young boy, when we first was allowed to go hunting with a gun, and our parents or our elders would say, if you're going to take something from the forest, make sure you do it respectfully, and make sure that you use it, that you don't just waste it. So if you're going to go out and take something's life, be it a tree or a plant or insect or animal or fish, that you do it respectfully, and you do it as quick as you can. You don't let the animal suffer, and if you kill it, you've got to eat it. and that was a lesson that we found out the hard way when we were kids. We said, well, I'm a little hungry, but I'm not sure if I'm ready to eat a squirrel or a chickadee bird or something like that. and there's got to be something else. But it was something that was always in the back of our mind. And to be told that when something dies, their spirit continues on, and to make sure that you release that spirit in a good way. And I was also even told that sometimes you might even take that spirit upon yourself and take it to a safe place that you can put it to rest. And I used to hear these stories. I don't know if they're true or not, about when somebody passes, that sometimes an animal or a bird or something will come and take that person's spirit to the spirit world, and I kind of believe that. My mother had a great relationship with the hawk, and when she passed on, I remember, as her body was being lowered into the ground, 2 hawks come overhead and circled, and so every time I seemed to need that little boost or something in my life, it seems like that hawk always shows up, and it's like my mother's spirit's there in that hawk, and so I really like that thought and that belief, and I'm not sure if that's what Albert was contributing to, but I think it's partial. I think it's a lot.
Related to the next question, Frank, that what does gratitude and healing have to do with Netukulimk, And so, when we make offerings, for example. So does anybody want to challenge or take on that question? Thank you, Clifford.
One of my early teachings is everything that casts a shadow has spirit. Everything that has spirit deserves respect. So in the concept of Netukulimk and incorporating Msɨt Nogama in the way we do things, we're harvest. Quite a few of us are. We harvest moose. We see the moose as a gift from the Creator. Came to us through prayer and through offerings. So as harvesters, we don't just kill the moose. We actually accept the gift, and we're actual facilitators of that gift. We accept the gift, harvest with love in our hearts, share it all. And in doing so, we facilitate that gift and we make it part of the community. Those who need the antlers get that. Those who request the tongue get that. Those who request the heart, the liver, whatever parts, they get that. And we share the meat and the hide. And we always do a ceremony to honor the spirit, because that animal came to us through prayer. We have accepted the gift. And it goes way back, because gratitude is a big part of how we survived as Mi'kmaq. We're very lucky people. The Creator loved us so much. The Creator put us in a beautiful world that has plentiful, and we are very blessed. So we want to make sure that through our teachings and through the sharing of the stories that that spirit, I guess, is brought into the classroom. Because as Carrie said earlier, we have young people who have the freedom to harvest and the freedom to fish and hunt without hindrance, and it's our responsibility as being experienced and to pass those teachings on, to ensure that with our rights comes great responsibility. And the responsibility is the expression of gratitude and respect. So I hope that answers the question.
One of the, I guess my last question is, and you mentioned it, Cliff, many of you are harvesters and you've spent a great deal of time in hunting and fishing and or gathering. Perhaps you can share a story that might help our students or our teachers here understand or to think about Netukulimk. So, Gerald, I growing up, Gerald lived down the road, so I was the nosy kid that always hang around his house. And he said, "Oh, you were never a kid, you're just like a little adult," he's what he said. But anyways, I always had the questions, and I want to do this, I want to borrow that, right? So, so my ways of learning, and like through Clifford and Frank and Carrie, right, I've always been through question and answer. And they had lots of patience for me, and they didn't all live in my community. They weren't all at my doorstep, right? But they ended up in my life somehow, and they answered these questions. And Carrie's got a big smile on his face because the time I used to spend, and he was working on a summer project, and they were splitting ash splints for Dawn at the time. So I would show up every day. It wasn't my job or anything. I just show up and help them along, boss them along, and keep an eye on them. So they taught me many things anyway about the ash trees and how to throw axes as an 8-year-old kid, to throw a double-bladed axe at a target. So, but it was all safe, right? But we had a good time. We built relationships, right? So anyway, it's just like that. Like how can we begin to start sharing with the kids, and if you guys can share any stories that may help the educators relate Netukulimk, because it is a hard and it was a difficult one for us. Jaime?
One of the quotes I liked from I think Elvis Costello, he said, "Talking about music is like dancing about architecture." It don't make a lot of sense. And when we were talking about when we did a youth conference in Bottomkek, we talked about Netukulimk and trying to teach that. And much the same way, I think reading about Netukulimk is like fishing in a library. How do you? It doesn't. It's good effort to see it in the books, but how do we reconnect children with the outer world, because they're losing that connectedness. My son, I have to kick out of the house at 6 years old to go play outside on a good day. He just wants to play on his iPad. So how do we get them back into there? And I know that when we did our first youth conference, instead of sitting in a classroom, talking about Netukulimk, we took them out on the river with Carrie and showed them where what Donald Marshall Jr. was doing and all about spearing eels. And Carrie showed them the spears, and we were on the river, and we even had 2 muskrats swim by who were misbehaving at the time, and that's a story of the birds and bees rather than Netukulimk, but it was funny, and it's just these experiences. Like, you learn more from those experiences, and I learn more from sweating at Stone Bear with Frank than I will about reading about a sweat, right? And so it's about how do we. And that's something that I'm trying to figure out through treaty education. We know it's not just about history when we teach about Mi'kmaq. It's about our connectedness with nature and teaching that world view. So how do we do that and how do I do that as someone who's taking the treaty education lead, finding that way? And I think it's about reconnecting and finding programs and ways in which we can not only read about Netukulimk, but practice it. Maybe going fishing with Clifford, or spearing with Carrie, or a sweat with Frank. These are things that I think we have to give at least some of our Mi'kmaq students and other students the ability to understand what that's about. And so, thank you. And
I can add to that. I think the time has come for us to go back to the ancient way of teaching through pattern recognition, through storytelling, through including all our senses into learning, the way our ancestors have done. We all know the words to about 100 songs. We know when the drum comes in. We know when to hit the high pitches and the low pitches. Some of us can, like this guy can. But what I'm saying is, let it be. That music, that song, let it be. We all know how to sing it. We all know how to go through it. Those are a series of patterns in our brain. Music is patterns, a group of patterns. Why can't our education be that way? Why can't, when Jaime goes to school, why can't he sing the answer? Why can't he dance the answer? Why can't he perform the answer? Does he have to recite it from through short-term memory stores, or should it be stored in the creative way of expressing yourself? We have to go beyond the walls, because the walls were created in a British schoolmaster system. I guess the best thing to do is change the shape of the classroom and change the delivery of the education. I was going to college, I was taking science, and I was older than all the kids there, and he gave us a question, a pop quiz, and I answered it based on my experiences outdoors. And the professor gave me a 10 out of 10, and he wrote, "It's good to know that much of your learning has been achieved beyond the walls." So that's something, as educators and as people who pass down traditional knowledge, or people who share the stories, is to change the shape of the classroom and, in essence, change the delivery so that it goes into the long-term memory of our storage. Yep. Why not sing the answer? Why not dance the answer? Why not perform the answer? Or, in some people's case, why not write the answer out?
Thank you, Clifford. And just before, we've been working with Pictou Landing School here over the last year, and we've sort of helped run a couple of sessions here. Gerald's talked to them. They've also shared with us, and so Gerald, I just wanted to sort of pass it back to you. Last time we were here, last November, one of the teachers, I don't think he's here today, but he'd shared the trip that the students went out onto the land and what they brought you back.
Well, again, just across the way is the ball field, and behind ball field is a nice, wonderful sandbar, and new things get deposited there every year. So taking each class outside of the walls of the classroom and going on a little field trip just within the own community, found pieces of ancient history and washing up on the shores right in behind the school. And to bring that in and sort of bring it part of it, and even as me as a visitor to the school doing a presentation, told me to take it back to the museums and take it back to the places of research and see what they have to say about that. And even finding things like an old bottle that was a boot black bottle. And again, it was all busted up, and the kids collected enough pieces of this bottle to put it back together that they could identify. That's going to stick with them for a lot longer than just seeing a picture of it in a book. It's like they'll remember that time. And and even again, they found a piece of an old leather shoe, and it was a shoe from the late 1800s or early 1900s. So it's like they definitely opened their eyes to what's out there, and the stories. Like, you know, they're not always presented to you in a storybook form. It's like create your own stories, and like, you know, that way they'll have things to tell their kids. And it was a good experience, just working with the kids and having them excited about their find and knowing that they made a contribution to someone else's story. It's good.
Thank you, Drew. So I know we got a few minutes left, probably 5 or so. I just wanted to see if there's any questions out there from our connected audience. Kevin, can you just help facilitate that if there's any questions?
Sure. The most people are sitting in Wiglema. Would anyone want to speak up from Wiglema and make a comment or ask a question?
No? Okay. Sheila?
They're all looking at each other. Nobody's moving.
Okay, and we didn't get any questions by email.
Okay, and then I'm going to unmute your microphone in Eel Ground. Did you want to speak up from Eel Ground? Okay, we also have the Nova Center. Oh, go ahead, Eel Ground, if you're ready. No? Okay. How about from the Nova Center? We have some guests there.
Just want to say thank you for allowing us to take part.
Okay. We had somebody.
Thank you very much. Yes, go ahead.
We just wanted to thank you for letting us take part of your session. We are very impressed with all the information that you guys shared, and we look forward into hearing from you. And
Thank you very
utilizing the
much.
information as well.
Thank you very much. And finally, from Elzebukto, it's mostly dark there, but does anyone want to speak up there? Okay, Tim, I guess that gets it covered.
Okay. So before we close in a few minutes, what we've done is one of the closing pages in the book, we've put a quote in there from Frank. And so I'm just going to read that quote. Mi'kma'ki is sacred. It is part of Mother Earth. The water that flows through the rivers, bays, and lakes flows through the veins of Mother Earth. The dirt is the skin, and the trees, plants, and shrubs are her hair. Today, we are always in a rush. The world swirls around us. We are immersed in technology, but we need to stop. We need to slow down. We need to put down our technological devices and sit back and observe the gifts Mother Earth has given us. Challenge your students, or even yourself, to do the same. Walk into the woods or simply sit outside in the soccer or baseball field. Sit or lay down in the grass, close your eyes and observe the bugs, the weather, the birds in the sky. What are they saying to you? How do you feel? What connections can you make? Now think of the bigger picture, the different districts of Mi'kma'ki. Are you a part of them? So that was from Frank Muse. So thanks for sharing that, Frank. So is there any other questions or? No, I think everything is covered. Did I cover everything that I needed to? Other than my name is Tim Bernard, and I'm sorry I didn't introduce myself. And I work at the Confederacy Mainland Mi'kmaq as the Director of History and Culture, and this has been part of a part of my work over the last few years, and I'm so appreciative of this group for sharing all their knowledge and allowing us to then share it with this big group. So thank you very much. Thank you to the Pictou Landing School for having us here today, Irene, and your teachers and the resource people. And also, you know, I just want to thank, by name, the Elders Advisory Council. So today, we have a number of our members here. They're not all here, but I will just list them by name. We have Elsie Charles Basque, is a member from Saulneyville, Nova Scotia. So Elsie is actually 99 years old, and she is at her home in Saulneyville. We have Sarah Francis is here. Sarah is from Pictou Landing, and she's been on our advisory council since 2002. We have Judy Bernard Julian from Buckenkeg. She's been sitting on our Elders Advisory Council. Teresa Isaac Julian from Millbrook, Lestigush, has been a part of our team. Malialan Gugu from Member 2, she's not here today, but she's been a part of our team. Don Julian from Millbrook, he chairs our Elders Advisory Council, and he's the Executive Director for the Confederacy. Doug Knockwood is not here today, unfortunately, but he is from Sabaganagadi, and he has been part of the team since day one. Lillian Marshall is here from Bolodek. Hi, Lillian. Little wave. Thank you. Merdina Marshall from Eskasoni. Sister Dorothy Moore from Member 2, and our newest member to our team is Agnes Potter from Bear River. So, hi, Agnes. So I just wanted to thank them for helping guide our team, and Phyllis Gugu. Sorry, Phyllis, I jumped right over you. And Phyllis Gugu is right there from Wagoba. On our Netukulimk team, we had Phyllis was a part of the team that helped put together this unit. Don Julian, Frank Muse, Clifford Paul, Carrie Prosper, as well as Chief Sidney Peters. He just messaged me before we started today, and his regrets he couldn't make it today. So that's the end of our session today. Just want to thank First Nations Help Desk for helping to facilitate the online video conferencing, allowing Faye to come and provide technical support. There's Faye. Thank you. And yeah, so.